Thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this program called, it's really a pilot, the Library HotSpot project, which is something, comes in a box, looks like this, press a button, you've got your Wi-Fi. And we're doing this pilot now with Brooklyn Public Library, Queens Public Library, as well as Maine and Kansas. So part of the opportunity here is to look at how can this benefit not only large urban areas, but what's the meaning for a smaller population base. We also, Brooklyn, Queens, and New York Public Library are actually at this particular moment using different lending patterns, because we're trying to understand whether that makes a difference. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But this really came out of the fact that 27% of New Yorkers actually don't have home internet access, and I think it's about 30% of all Americans. But almost 2/3 of those New Yorkers actually earn less than $20,000 a year. I have no idea on earth how they're living on that in New York City, but they are. And since the libraries have played a really important role in providing access to the internet, but our hours are not available at hours when a lot of people actually need access to the internet. And we would walk by and people would be sitting on the doorsteps of the libraries. And I'm sure that's true for a lot of the large urban libraries, and probably not just large urban libraries. So what we decided to do was last year in, I think, the spring, we actually lent out 100 of these, just as a pilot to students. We really focused on the kids that come to our after-school programs. Most of those kids are from immigrant families. Their parents don't necessarily speak English. They usually can't afford. They're in sort of our highest need neighborhoods. And so we did our pilot, and what we found was that they used them mostly in the evenings. The largest amount of information they used was things like YouTube, Google. That's sort of where the heavy sites were. But when we interviewed the parents, so 23 of the 100 families, 23 of them, the parents were part of a survey, they said that they actually learned how to help their kids do homework better, because they actually were able to be at the computer with them when they're doing their homework. The kids did use it to do their homework. I'm not saying they only use it to their homework. I mean, that would be asking for the impossible. But the sort of side benefit of this was the confidence. And if there's one thing that we all know, is that the more you are successful at something, the more confident you come, the more you're able to contribute to other things. And so confidence was a great result of this. So based on that, we actually went back and in December launched this new pilot of 10,000 units. The 10,000 units, we're about halfway through. In November we'll be done. We're on track to getting them all out across the whole city, plus Kansas and Maine. And this is really thank you to Night News Challenge, Open Society Foundation, Robinhood, and Google. And we don't have the results of this yet, but we will also be doing an assessment. So Luke Swartout is leading this for us, we've talked a lot about what does this mean for libraries, because is this really a scalable solution, right? And part of the way we've talked about this in our own institution and with our board is this is a way to shine a light on the issue. So while this may be a pilot and an experiment and maybe not the end result of what we do, it actually has shone a light on what we do and ensured libraries are part of the conversation at the national and we were a player, not the it, but in the national and at the local level in the city around broadband access. So I know that we've been really behind the proposed Lifeline modernization efforts, and I believe we sent a letter through the ULC, and so I'm just really, I think this is another example of iteration, knowing what the goal is, and just trying things out, particularly when you keep looking at the changing technologies. There's sort of the long-term vision, which is, I so believe in this, that what Jonathan talks about. But this was our way of bringing it home in our own neighborhood. And I think it has made a big difference in these 5,000 households today. I'm really looking forward to the results and figuring out how on earth we're going to sustain this going forward. That's my biggest concern at the moment. It's just when you take it away, what happens? So we're working through our exit strategy right now.